Popular culture in China, American culture in China is what I want to talk about, but I want to take maybe the first minute to talk about some of the things that other people have talked about directly or indirectly. For example, I happen to be reading the Washington Post blog, The Fix on Washington Today. The lead article, one of the lead articles, were the new advertisements from Republican candidates entitled, as Ad Wars Heat Up, Republicans Eye China as Their Secret Weapon. It's almost like the Nixon visit in reverse. China is now the secret weapon to win control of the House and perhaps the Senate, because the polls have shown very clearly that a very, very large percentage of the American public think that the economic stimulus has been used primarily to create jobs in China, or at least has been wasted. So China, in spite of the short-term, I might disagree slightly with Drew Thompson, in spite of the short-term benefits of the Gates visit and restoration of military relations and so on, these things go back and forth, 9 months here, 9 months back. I don't see a long-term benefit. Again, if you look at polling in the United States, the American public feels, I think it was latest Washington Post, ABC News poll, it was something like 43% feel that this century is China's century. 30-something% feel it's the American century. And this has been increasing constantly. So I think this kind of tension in the relationship is going to continue. And I agree with some of what Dan Lynch was saying. People in China, elites in China, military elites, see this happening and are lobbying the government for that. The other thing I would mention is that Chinese Central Television had a very interesting documentary in light of the first panel called Mimi Fangwen, the secret Kissinger visit to China, where they interview Zhou Enlai's aides. They have Mao's nurse who had dinner with him every night. And you get it from the Chinese side, but also interview Henry Kissinger, Winston Lord, Alexander Haig from the American side about the secret preparations. It's worth watching. I must say, though, when Henry Kissinger was speaking, I read the Chinese subtitles because I couldn't understand what he was saying. But it's well worth watching. And the National Archives has just put out Richard Nixon's visit to China in 1972, which is widely available if you want to buy it from the archives. And that's mostly NBC News, John Chancellor, Barbara Walters, talking about the trip with some of the video material we saw here. In terms of the popular culture issue, tremendous changes in China since 2001. And I don't have PowerPoint because I can't do a PowerPoint in 5 minutes. But if you look in the early 2000s, the Chinese magazines like Sanlian Shenghua Zhoukan, Sanlian Life Weekly were all about just beginning to talk about how people were getting rich in China. Who are the rich people? How do they get that way? When I was in China in September, China Weekly, the cover story was on another survey, but this was on the people who own private planes in China. China has the second largest number of billionaires. And the laws have still not caught up in China because most of these private planes are not registered. It turns out that the fine for flying a private plane in China is less than the cost of registering a private plane in China. So people are just, so that's, they're really having some growing pains, but it's very interesting. You look at American popular culture, the Chinese equivalent of soap opera digest, this is Dan Shuju, cover story, September, Big Bang Theory. You can find any American sitcom in China completely. They have all 20 seasons of The Simpsons available there. You cannot find anything past season 13 normally in the United States. I brought copies of Seinfeld, South Park, the Chinese editions of them. So they're very much aware of American popular culture. In fact, there's an interesting survey, unpublished in the open press, but a restricted circulation survey, on Western visual cultural products, whether they propagate Western political concepts and lifestyles. This is university students in China. Over 82% said yes. Only 11.6% said no. But when they were asked, do you identify with these cultural concepts from American visual culture, only 17% said they don't identify with them. So American popular culture is very successful in China. And when you look at surveys, even of political systems in China, this survey, which is the Shokuyuan Academy of Social Sciences, and some other surveys, they show a surprising amount of support for the American system of separation of powers, because a lot of people in China, 1 minute already, okay, and I haven't gotten to a lot of like Supergirl and Rolling Stone, and that's okay, come take my class. So basically, what you're finding out is that the American political system is seen sometimes in terms of separation of powers, for example, as the only way to fight corruption. It can't be done just by the Communist Party itself. Tremendous animosity toward American foreign policy and the fear that they're trying to keep China weak, but tremendous support for American popular culture and many aspects of American society and even American politics.